What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, here with Cody Almasi. Cody, how are we doing today, man?
Doing good, brother. Fired up, ready for tomorrow, noon. You know what it is. Gonna get there.
Hey, it's Paul Bunyan week. We all know that. We've been talking about it, tweeting about it all week long. Obviously, one of the most anticipated games of the year for both us, Michigan and Michigan State fans alike. So it's going to be a big game. Obviously, we know that coming into this game, both teams 7-0. One team's at Michigan, or one team's at 6, one team's at 8. Michigan's at 6, and Michigan State is at 8. This is the first time they've been ranked or top 10 ranked since when was it?
1964, believe it or not. It's been a long time, almost 80 years. Insane.
It's been a long time.
60 years, my bad.
It's been a long time. So, needless to say, it's been a long time, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. Let's talk about the Week 9 outlook. So, believe it or not, guys, there's other games going on this weekend. There's to us Michigan State fans, we got our blinders on as far as the other games that are going on. But here, being the Gin College Podcast, we got to cover at least a few more games that are going on this weekend. So it's going to be, a contest. There's a lot of games that are going to set up and set the stage going into the rest of the season, getting towards the middle point here, and it's going to be crazy going down the rest of the stretch. So you can call this the middle tier of the season, but there's a lot happening, a lot going on. So.
Yeah, this last week of October and then all of November is just going to be an absolute riot, man. It's going to be so much fun to watch. And these games we're going to talk about before we get into the big game have a lot to do with what happens with our teams going forward down the road, the Big Ten East and the Big Ten Championship in Idaho.
Yes, definitely. That's the interesting part about the Big Ten is there's two divisions that really, one side, the East Division plays a team. Whoever wins the East basically plays whoever wins the West. And that's just how it is. However you want to consider each division to be stacked in whatever direction you decide. I think the East, is it the East or the West? I can't even see on here.
We're in the East, Ohio State, Penn State, and then Iowa, Northwestern, Minnesota, Wisconsin. They're in the West.
Yeah, so the East, I would say, is a little bit more stacked, a little bit more skewed as far as, considering the strength of each division. I think the strength is a little bit lopsided. But needless to say, it's going to be crazy going down the stretch as far as, who's going to play in that Big Ten Conference Championship, who's going to win, and who's going to propel themselves to get to the point where they are going to play for the championship. First game to talk about, let's talk about Wisconsin and Iowa. So these teams have been through the ringer this year. Both teams, they've won some games, they've lost some games. Iowa's only lost one game. So let's talk about this matchup. What do we have to look forward to? What does Iowa have to overcome after losing to Purdue? And what does Wisconsin have to prove after losing some other key games throughout the season?
Iowa, they lost to Purdue, like you said. Just they hope it's an anomaly of a game. They only put up 7 points and let Purdue put 24 up on them. And then Purdue goes and gets beat by Wisconsin the next week. So it's kind of a head scratcher. That's the chaos that's been attached to the Big Ten, and that we could see going forward if all of these teams that are at the top of the Big Ten East kind of start to collapse on one another, give each other some losses. We could see lots of chaos and no undefeated teams. So it's going to be interesting, but I think Iowa, they're still in a good seat, number 9, only one loss, and beat Penn State, that big game early, and still have a lot to play for. They could definitely win the Big Ten West and be sitting there facing us, the Buckeyes, your Spartans, or whoever ends up there, all said and done. And Wisconsin, after losing to Notre Dame, Michigan, I forget who else they lost to in the beginning of the season right now. But, they've won their last 3 games and looked good. Like I said, beat Purdue after they finally got in the top 25. Wisconsin kind of swatted them out of there. And it's going to be interesting, this game, what happens.
Yeah, for sure. You got Wisconsin. They just beat Purdue. Obviously, the bettors, including myself, favored Purdue to win that game after beating Iowa, being undefeated until that game. And there's lots
Wisconsin's favored again in this one, too. 3-point favorite.
Wisconsin's favored in this one, where you'd think, oh, well, Iowa still had a really good season. You can't really undermine the season that they've already had. You'd think that they would have, a good chance to, have a good, chance to win this game, or at least be considered to, be a serious contender in this game, which they are. I would definitely say they are. And the Wisconsin Badgers are no one to really play around with. They're unranked, but obviously they're favored in this game. That means the bookies in Las Vegas are seeing something that maybe the average bettor is not seeing. I guess what would give Wisconsin the edge in this game compared to the season Iowa's had and the games that they've won?
Maybe just that edge that they've been playing with the last few games, finding ways to win when they haven't, and overcoming that early adversity and then playing for next season to set yourself up. And so they're playing like a different team, and Iowa's coming off a bye week and a loss the week prior. So maybe the Vegas thinks that they're going to catch them by surprise, or they're not going to be ready, I should say. But it's a toss-up in my eyes.
Yeah, you got to look at the quarterback stats, right? So Spencer Petras, 119 for 200, 1,333 yards, 9 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Against Graham Mertz, 85 for 152. That average is a little bit off, but they're not a really through-the-air team. 945 yards, significantly less than Spencer Petras. 2 touchdowns. Is that crazy or what?
Whole bunch of picks.
7 interceptions, 7 picks. That's a significant amount of picks, which you'd think would make him want to go through the ground. And I think his stats, at least the last few games, have spoke to that. Counting on the run game, counting on, different angles to attack the defense. And it seems to have been working in some cases. Other cases, it hasn't worked so much. But I think what they've really done, especially to beat Purdue, they had to change their strategy. They had to switch the script and really, figure it out to get the ball in the end zone and to win those games, and those games are toss-up games, 4-3, 2-2 in conference play. Obviously not the best, not the most ideal record that you want to have, but going into the rest of the season, obviously being in the West, you're going to want to, obviously you got some work to do, but you're not by any means in a bad position to win your division and put yourself in a position to eventually, possibly be in that conference title game.
Yeah, like it's so chaotic. You never know what happens. All these other teams could accumulate 3 losses in the next 5 weeks here.
Yeah, it's really a toss-up, especially in the West. So it's going to be a toss-up going down the stretch. Let's move on a little bit, though. That'll be a good game happening at noon tomorrow, 11 a.m. Central Time. I'm still in Playa del Carmen, Quintana Roo, Mexico. So I'm coming back on Sunday, so don't miss me too much. We're going back to our regular scheduling on the 1st of November, so look forward to that. Hopefully you guys saw our post come out yesterday regarding that information. But yeah, let's talk about Ohio State and Penn State. Obviously another big matchup happening in the Big Ten. It's basically Big Ten week over here at the Gin College Podcast. What do we have to look forward to in this game, and who do you think has the edge?
Even though it's not carrying the same weight that it would have 3 weeks ago when Penn State didn't have 2 losses, this is still a huge game, and Penn State always plays Ohio State well. I always look forward to watching these 2 teams match up. I can kind of take a back seat. I'm always kind of rooting for Penn State to beat the Buckeyes, but I really don't like Penn State at all either. I don't have any love for the Nittany Lions when it comes to matching up in football or any sport for that matter. But yeah, a couple weeks ago, a month ago, this may have been favored to be the college game day, like where they showed up, where they went to eventually. This is a huge game, and back then it was like a 4-5 matchup projected to be or something along those lines. And Penn State had that heartbreaker, 9 OTs. I don't know how they're going to play in this. They got to be exhausted still. It's a lot of recovery, and emotionally and physically after a game like that, the longest football game in college football history, But I'd love to see him give the Buckeyes, CJ Stroud, at least some trouble, show some signs of weakness as our 2 teams get ready to play them in the coming weeks. I'd love to see some signs of weakness that we can maybe exploit later on.
Yeah, it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test for both these teams. Big loss for Penn State and James Franklin last week against the Fighting Illini, and heartbreaker, absolute heartbreaker.
James
Not
Franklin heart's broken. I mean, I know you guys, everybody's seen his press conferences. He doesn't know who he's playing or where he's playing this week.
Yeah, what did James Franklin say? He said something that was a little bit silly that might have made us think he's off his rocker. What did he say in a press conference?
Yeah, I'm not exactly too sure what his pre-interview routines were, but he said that he was going to the Big House and that he's going to be playing Illinois, who he just lost to, and the Big House is Michigan. He's going to the Shoe, which is in Columbus. A little bit different places there and teams.
Oh yeah, just a little bit off by maybe a few hundred miles or so.
A lot of people speculating he might be thinking about his next job opportunity, which has been talked about all season long, even before this when he was having lots of success. But you got to think now he might be thinking about that a little bit more than the rest of the season.
Well, yeah, definitely. And James Franklin is a very, very interesting story coming in. We talked about this on the Monday show, how he came in and basically was in part of that recovery phase from the Joe Pa, Jerry Sandusky era of Penn State football. And he's seen a lot of success. He rebuilt that team, rebuilt that program into something that's really sought after now. And then for him to, find that hardship early on was good for him and good for his longevity up to this point. But now he's reaching that point. It's the next phase of his coaching career where he's reaching that point of adversity again. He's figuring out how to face that, how to deal with that, how to bounce back after, some significant losses. And, how is he going to basically bounce back to be the coach he wants to be, and how is he going to turn Penn State into the football team that he really wants them to be and be successful? It looked like it was going to be a possibility. It was going to happen this year where they're going to go all the way and be undefeated, at least until this point too. They had some tough contests. The Iowa game, obviously, and the Illinois game was one that nobody saw coming. No one could have saw that coming. Yes, they might have been down in the dumps, but to see them lose to that team, that Illinois team, being how they are, Illinois is not the best team in the Big Ten. Hint, hint. But, to see that happen, I think that was kind of, the icing on the cake, the insult to injury to losing to Iowa and then going forward and trying to recover from that. And they're still recovering from that. They're even in a deeper hole now than they were before. So I guess it's the sentiment in Penn State and the entire program, and for James Franklin, probably his coaching staff, his players, the mentality, the mindset, the sentiment, whatever you want to call it, is not in the best of condition right now. And that's just how it is. I guess what's it going to take for them to really bounce back and become the team they want to be again?
Yeah, like in the locker room, everything's up in the air if he's going to be with them going forward. So, but you really hope that James Franklin and his players can avoid just letting all that distraction get to them and play for what they still have in front of them, try to win some games down the stretch here and solidify a decent season. And at least if he is leaving, he doesn't leave these players he recruited and his fans that have – it's been a little wishy-washy at times, but then ultimately they love James Franklin for what he did, and hopefully he leaves them in a good note if he does decide to part ways at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be tough if he does part ways, because then the Nittany Lions and Penn State are going to be forced into another point of rebuilding their team and their program. It's going to be tough on them. It's going to be tough on everybody. It's going to be a vulnerability in the Penn State camp, at least as far as, different competitions, different teams are going to be playing going forward, not just this year, but next year, year after that. It's going to leave a hole that's going to be tough to fill. So hopefully they can figure it out. Obviously a very tough contest against CJ Stroud and the Ohio State Buckeyes. And it's going to be tough. We actually had the pleasure or dismay, whatever you want to call it. They were nice people. John and Kate. Actually, no, not John and Kate. What was the name? I can't even remember, but I was thinking about John and Kate plus 8. I don't know why, but these two individuals went to Ohio State. They were talking about, I'm like, oh yeah, we got the Michigan State game this weekend, obviously, and things like that. We're talking about the rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State, how it's possibly the biggest rivalry in all of sports, not just all of football, not just all of basketball, but of all of sports. And just kind of talking about that a little bit, but without getting on too much of a tangent, they're feeling pretty good about their Ohio State team, and they have some things that they would consider to change and things like that. But I think they're on the right track, and they like their quarterback, CJ Stroud. So
yeah, the Buckeyes look good, and I know a lot of Buckeye fans are getting pissed off hearing us discuss Kenneth Walker III and Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum. They want some respect on Henderson's name. I know that they're tired of hearing us talk about our running backs. They want people to talk about Travion Henderson.
Yeah, and they still got both of us yet before the end of the season, so it's gonna really get heated up going forward, even beyond tomorrow. We want to make it seem like, we're going to talk about Paul Bunyan here in a minute, but there's still a lot of games to be played even after tomorrow, which has to be considered too, which will help clear up that picture of what the Big Ten will look like, of what the Big Ten championship will look like, and what the college football playoff will look like going further towards the end of the season. And I don't know if you've heard anything yet. Have you heard anything about there being a 12-team playoff, or is it still 4 teams?
Yeah, last time I checked, it was still that they had passed up on a vote. I've seen lots of cool concepts. I've seen something about an 18 playoff. So I think we won't hear too much more about it until this season ends. That's just my thoughts on it. But yeah, definitely everybody wants a little something more. I know that for sure.
Yeah, there's been conversations, there's been votes, there's been, things that have been talked about as far as extending the playoff, extending the amount of teams in it. I hope they reach a middle ground, but if they don't reach one this year, I think the fact that they're having the conversations, that they're having these talks about increasing the amount of teams in the college football playoff, I think that's a great start. So that's something that we haven't really heard much of yet up until this point, or even, preseason that we heard. We heard these conversations happen. We heard that, certain conferences were merging. That never really happened, at least not yet. And I can't see them doing it, mid-season like we're at right now, especially with schedules already made and solidified and rankings, AP polls, everything are made up. I can't see anything happening as of this year to,
I think the earliest we'll see something is like 2023, 2024, probably as a new playoff format, because that's when these conferences will start to realign, because all the conference realignment has really started to develop more, and it's trickled down to the G5 and Conference USA and the Sun Belt and the ACC. I mean, the AAC are all interchanging, switching. Some conferences' futures are very, very bleak looking and don't know if they're going to have enough teams and revenue to even survive as a conference. I know Conference USA is one that is going to be struggling in the years proceeding forward. So that's going to be a whole nother storyline that is going to be extremely interesting and a unique and unprecedented thing to follow and cover for you guys.
Oh yeah, definitely going to provide us with some very good, important content going down the road as far as the Gen College podcast goes and college athletics as a whole is concerned. A lot of things will change. A lot of, different decisions will be made that will change the landscape drastically. We're saying this here and now, October 29th, 2021. Things will be changing, and hopefully for the better. Hopefully it works out for the better, but things will be changing, and the landscape will never be the same again once they do change. But without going off on too much of a tangent, we'll save these topics for a later date. Let's talk about the topic at hand. Let's talk about Paul Bunyan. So big games tomorrow. Cody's got the Michigan themed Paul Bunyan hoodie on. Has the 1953 date on there from when the Paul Bunyan Trophy became a thing, became a staple in college athletics, became a staple in the Michigan State rivalry. What are we looking for tomorrow, and what does your Michigan Wolverines have to do tomorrow to be successful in East Lansing?
Well, before I get into what we need to do, just want to give a little background, talk about just the history of this rivalry, at least in our, since we've been able to follow, really be interested in college football games back early 2000s. My Wolverines, Chad Henne, Mike Hart, we went on a run. We're dominating until 2008 when the likes of Michigan State really went on a run themselves, when we won one game from 2008 to 2015. My Wolverines only got one. Connor Cook, lighting it up, Le'Veon Bell, Hayward, all kinds of names, back and forth. But going from being so one-sided for the last 15 years, from 2016 on, we've had a pretty good battle. The last 10 matchups have been 6-4 in your Spartans' favors. But the last couple of years, It's really the intensity of the matchups. It's always been there, but it's really starting to go back and forth a little bit. And I just love what I'm seeing. The Great Divide feels more divided than ever. Especially this year, we've never seen anything like this. Like you said earlier, 1964, the last time both these teams were this good. 1997, we were a top 15 matchup. We go on to win a national championship, that year. But it is what it is. That's all history. Now we're talking about tomorrow. And, 7-0, 7-0. It's like a playoff game, damn near, the Big East playoff game, Big Ten East playoff game. And it's going to be a bloodbath. I think both teams have what's necessary in their own bag to beat the other team. It's really going to come down to key plays, who makes less mistakes, who capitalizes on the other team's mistakes, and then who wants it more. I know both teams want it more. Both of these coaches, Mel Tucker, it's only his second year, but he has Paul Bunyan in East Lansing, and he doesn't want him to go anywhere. He wants to shut everybody up about where his future is and where he's going, if he's going to leave Michigan State, which I don't think he is, but he wants to shut everybody up and get them talking about what the Spartans could be if they beat the Wolverines and then the people they have in front of them after that. But there's so much hatred between these two teams. It's kind of unbelievable. I don't know if there's anything like this in sports, though Buckeyes and my Wolverines always get talked about as the biggest rivalry, the game. But I think it's been a minute, my Wolverines can't get a win, so it hasn't been much of a rivalry, but the emotion and just everything that goes into this game every year, you can throw rankings, underdogs, the spread, over-unders all out the window because it comes down to just heart and what happens on the field. We've seen all kinds of crazy things in this rivalry. Most recently, probably my Wolverines, the 2015, he fumbles the punt. The punter, I've blocked his name out of my memory. I know it's something Blake, but he got death threats. Like the fan bases, aside from the coaches and players, they might have more into it than even the players and the coaches, man. Because there's fans who can be amicable, but there's some hate. I'm going to be in East Lansing tomorrow, and I've had people, when I told them I'm going to the game, they said be careful because it's that serious. People will get mad over the results of this game. It's a noon game, so that should dial it some of it back, but I know it's still going to be, the energy is going to be over 100%. It's going to be something to experience.
Oh yeah, the energy will be palpable. You'll be able to cut it with a knife. And, you mentioned the history, right? You talk about the history. You talk about, even going back to the late 90s and the Nick Saban era of Michigan State football, where Mel Tucker was a graduate assistant coach for the Michigan State Spartans. That's when his first taste of this rivalry was. And that's where he first recognized the true reality of this rivalry. I think the fact that we're both 7-0, I think that's unprecedented within itself. I can't find a statistic that tells me that's ever happened before. Yes, there's been top 10 matchups between these two teams, but to have both teams be undefeated this late in the season, I think is unprecedented. I don't think it's ever happened before. So to have these different, mentalities, these tempers are so high as far as, being able to want something so bad. This is the hump that you have to get over for both of these teams. You have to get over this hump, get over Michigan State weekend. Get Paul Bunyan in your possession. That is the number one goal. That is the number one achievement that is on your plate, that is on your to-do list to get done and to achieve. You talk about the Connor Cook era. You talk about the Kirk Cousins era, Le'Veon Bell. On as far as those players, and that streak that they have as far as winning games in this type of competition, the Michigan State game. Obviously, it's a big deal. It's been a big deal for a long time. We used to have a block party in my hometown before I was even of college age, of drinking age. Might have threw a few sodas back in those days. Don't tell Mama Bink, but it was the emotions are high. The emotions are very high. Cody and I talked about this before the game. We don't know if there's another matchup that's in-state. Yes, you have the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry. Is there a bigger in-state collegiate rivalry than Michigan State?
not that gets hyped up as much. There's not as much emotions. The Red River rivalry might be as close, but that's not state to state. That's not an in-state rivalry. That's Oklahoma and Texas. But Florida State, that doesn't really hold water to it. Like Ohio State, Penn State, they don't really have in-state rivals like that. And you get some kind of remnants of it in the Pac-12, but nothing like this, and definitely not like this year. This is something to behold. And before we get too sold on which team wins or like why we think our team is going to win, I just want everybody as a fan to really sit back and enjoy this for what it is, this matchup, and it really just embodies why we love college football and why, to me, it's one of the best sports to watch. It just has so much more to it than anything else. And the same with college basketball and March Madness and that type of atmosphere. It's just can't be replicated. And no matter what happens tomorrow, I'm going to enjoy every quarter, every snap of the game.
Oh, you're going to be right in the thick of it too. I'm jealous of you to the point where, I wish I was there. I wish I was going to be there. Obviously, I'm out of the state, out of the country. I'm going to still be tuned in. Just going to be watching the game. But it's going to be a great atmosphere to be a part of. And to say that you were there, I guess, what do your Michigan Wolverines have to do? What does the offense have to do? What does Cade McNamara have to do to be successful and to really get the offense going and to be able to penetrate the Michigan State defense?
Well, what we already is too far gone. As a fan base, we need to have unwavering faith in Cade McNamara until he proves he can't do the job, because that man is hearing all of us doubt him. He hears this, even though I think he's doing a great job of putting it in the back burner and tuning it out and still executing. He hears this kind of stuff, and you got to think he thinks about it and you don't want it to affect his psyche. And J.J. McCarthy, he's building a legend of his own, but his time is going to come. And if it needs to come, it's going to come. But we need to let Cade McNamara do his job. He just has to hand the ball off to two of the best running backs in the country. I was thinking about it earlier. I'm going to make this comparison real quick. You guys having Kenneth Walker III is like having Derrick Henry, but us having Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins is like having Dalvin Cook and let's say Najee Harris. Not exactly both top tier guys, but a 1-2 punch that is insane. And as long as the offensive line can do their job as well, hit their blocks, and then the tight ends get the chip of the guy, get that completion to make a manageable third down, and just try to control the game. Just play our brand of football and not let motion get the best of us. Don't make any mistakes and protect Cade McNamara. And then don't let Kenneth Walker break any runs. If he breaks one, I can live with it. He breaks 2, 3, that's going to break our defense. It's going to put our secondary in awful situations and jeopardizing moments, and it could get ugly if we allow Kenneth Walker to get loose. And that's probably my biggest concern, because the man is an animal. He deserves all the credit that he's gotten, and he deserves a lot more Heisman love, in my opinion. I'm tired of seeing all these quarterbacks get absolutely all of it. I want some more love. Another running back from Syracuse, Sean Tucker, that man's having a season too. So I want to see more than just these quarterbacks, especially in a year like this when it's so wide open and there isn't anybody absolutely blowing anybody away. I want to see the Kenneth Walkers of the world get some more love for Heisman.
Yeah, they do. They deserve it. And the worst thing Michigan can do, I'll say this right here, right now, I've said it before on previous podcasts, the worst thing Michigan and their defense can do is give Kenneth Walker III green grass to run. You give him green grass to run, he's just going to run until he doesn't see green grass anymore. He sees the end zone, he's going to keep running. So if you can eliminate the green grass that Kenneth Walker sees in front of him, I'm saying, a 5-foot radius. 5-foot radius. It seems like it's not that big, but that's a world's worth of size for someone like Kenneth Walker. So if you eliminate his space, you guys will be in good shape, especially for the run game. But this game will be won in the trenches. I hate to say it, this game will be won in the trenches. Which offensive line wants it more? Which offensive line will know their assignments? Which offensive line will go on to and stay true to their count, stay true to their cadence? They're going to have to know the cadence of their quarterback like the back of their hand, and that's going to be a very important thing. But, there's been some close games that both of these teams have faced so far. So I'm looking for Peyton Thorne to find that confidence in the pocket. We need to find confidence in the pocket for Peyton Thorne. If we want to have any success through the air, he's got to find confidence. Yes, you can throw your trick plays in there that brings you back to the Mark D'Antonio days of trick plays, the Charlie Gant touchdown passes to beat Notre Dame, things like that. You're going to have some of those in there. They might catch Michigan off guard, so Michigan's got to be looking for those too. Jim Harbaugh is telling his team, you got to look out for trick plays. Mel Tucker took that note and took those pointers from Mark D'Antonio as far as incorporating trick plays into his offense, catching the defense off guard. So that's going to be something too, is staying true to your defense. This goes for Michigan State's defense too, staying true on your defensive side and staying true to your assignments and really being disciplined on, run plays, deep pass plays, and trick plays. They're going to happen. You'll see them tomorrow. I can guarantee it. But it's going to be a great contest. We can say as much.
I'm curious to see how Aiden Hutchinson and the Michigan pass rush defense does against your offensive line, and then how Peyton Thorne responds to that and how it affects his decision makings. Because if we get to him early and often, it could be bad for him. And vice versa, we need the Michigan offense. I would be completely so happy if we didn't attempt one trick play, because usually in this situation, we try to use some of that Mark D'Antonio juice, call a trick play, and you guys sniff it out. And it just adds that momentum to you guys catching our trick play. And really, at least I can remember that happening a few times over the rivalry. My Aunt Hillary shouted out the Spartans, said it's going to be a great game. Just want to say, love you, Aunt Hillary. Thanks for commenting. Big Sparty.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to come down to who's more disciplined, especially on defense, who's more disciplined on offense to not bite off more than you can chew, get the job done, know your assignments, and play your strengths.
And key plays on both sides will be like your Naylor and Reed catching the ball on screens, and what happens or Hassan Haskins or Blake Corum catching balls on screens, or AJ Henning, some of our fast slot receivers, those plays. And if we can get positive, like either side, if we can get our fast players on those kind of screen plays behind the line of scrimmage, I think they'll both attempt some stuff like that. And I think if they're successful or unsuccessful, it's going to determine how they call the plays as well going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And both of these teams have speed. They have speed to their advantage. How is that going to be limited? This is going to be a big-time defensive game, too. The defense is going to have to win this game. The linemen are going to have to win this game. It's going to be an all-around competition, all-around good game on both sides. Right before we sign off here, let's talk about the betting odds. Michigan comes into East Lansing -4, MSU +4, money line -200 for Michigan, and +170 for Michigan State, over under 50.5. Give me your betting expertise. Show me your strengths as far as betting goes, Cody. And this is the only week, I tweeted this out earlier this week, this is the only week that I condone betting with your heart over betting with your head. And that's something that's usually a cardinal rule. This is a leniency period of the year. So what is your bet if you had to take either a spread, a money line, and an over-under?
I would money line, I'm rolling with my Wolverines. I think we got everything necessary to get the W. I think that we are more complete. The Spartans are nothing to be laughed at, and it is in East Lansing. The atmosphere is going to be wild. I know Michigan is trying to bring some fans, get us to try to invade Spartan Stadium, but the Spartan Stadium will not have that tomfoolery. They are going to stop it at the door. Any kind of gimmick that our fans try to bring in or anything like that's going to be stopped. So it's really tough to say. I say Michigan win by a field goal. That's my guess if I had to make a prediction. I say we win -3, but yeah, the +4, -4. I know a lot of Sparties are pissed about it because it's in East Lansing and it's more than a field goal. So I know your Spartans are not very happy about the line.
We'll favor the line. We'll take it.
Yeah, you'll bet on it.
We're a little bit pissed at the bookies for, pretty much saying that we're subservient to the Wolverines as far as an even spread. I talked to a couple buddies this week. They thought it should be an even spread given what both of these teams have gone through this year. I think an even line is perfect. I think make it +100, both sides. and you're gonna get a lot of bets on both sides if you're Las Vegas in the bookies.
Definitely.
So having this spread is what it is, especially more than 3, favoring it more than 3. I mean, that's kind of a big spread, in my opinion. But I got to take Michigan State money line. So I'm getting them plus 170, and I'm going to take the over. I think this is going to be an absolute scoring competition. Who's going to be able to score as many points as they can? Similar to Nebraska, Michigan earlier in the year, it's just basically a shootout. Who's going to be able to score the most points, put the most points on the board, and cross the end zone goal line? Who's going to cross the goal line the most? And it's going to be a test, and there's going to be a lot of cleat marks on those goal lines.
You think Mel Tucker is making any sort of game plan for JJ McCarthy? Does he have them ready to defend him coming in and breaking off a 20-yard run or doing something, a trick play, wildcat, something? You think he's got a piece of his notebook dedicated to JJ McCarthy?
I definitely think he does. I think he has his defense very much structured like his offense. His offense is tailored around Kenneth Walker III, which is a running powerhouse, a absolute phenom when it comes to running the football. So I think knowing that offense, knowing that side of your offense, that strength that you have, I think you have to be prepared as far as being able to, defend that and being able to stop the run, especially the breakaway run. A few yards here and there, yes, that will hurt you over the course of a game. But if you can stop the long run more times than not, then you're going to be successful. They're going to have to stop the long run. I definitely think they have it. And I think Mel Tucker has that in his itinerary and his playbook to be able to defend.
Definitely. I can't wait, man. It's going to be one of the best games. I hope so anyway.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, I'm shaking my boots. I feel nervous. I feel butterflies going into tonight. Sleeping tonight, it's going to be hard for me to sleep. And I can only imagine with the players and coaches, Jim Harbaugh and Mel Tucker, they got to be going through it tonight. They're really feeling it, feeling the nerves, and they're prepared.
2 players were roommates a year ago, I believe, weren't they? Aiden Hutchinson and then Van Sumeren is his name, Sumeren, right?
Yeah, they were actually roommates. His name's escaping me at this point, but yeah, Van Sumeren was his last name. He was at Michigan. Now he plays on the special teams at Michigan State, and he's the linebacker. So there's no love there. There's a lot of hatred between these two sides. We know that. It's been very evident through some heartbreakers that we've seen in the last decade or so. And I feel whenever Michigan fans hear Jalen Watts Jackson or there's a problem with staff, the ball is for when they hear that, it's just like they wake up from a dead sleep. If they hear it like in a dream, they wake up and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah. The Michigan fans in there.
Yeah, hands in the air. They wake up, their hands in the air, sit up in the bed like this.
There's lots of imagery associated with this rivalry that you can think back. Donovan Peoples-Jones posing like Paul Bunyan recently. Devin Bush kicking the Spartan logo. That was that was a lot. That's a big one. Got you guys fired up. Mike Hart, little brother. I was watching both hype videos from both sides, Michigan ones and Spartan ones, and they both just had me ready to run through a brick wall this morning. I was ready to go. Even just the Spartan one, Mark D'Antonio, when he's like, "This isn't over. This will never be over." And the dude, you can see the fire in his eyes, and it's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's really great. It's a great competition. It's a great showcase of abilities within an in-state rivalry with two great programs that have seen a lot of success in the last 50 or so years. It's going to be a great contest tomorrow. Hope you guys are all tuning into it. Cody, I hope you're safe in East Lansing tomorrow. I wish you all the best. I can guarantee you it'd be a lot safer if you wore green and white, but if you must wear your maize and blue, that's your decision.
Nice little pin here for the crowd. I got a little Paul Bunyan. Sparty. Hell yeah. Just wanted to leave you guys with that.
Jeez, oh Pete. This guy's decked out in Paul Bunyan attire. Paul Bunyan has really incorporated the true reality of this competition, of this rivalry, and it's going to be a battle tomorrow for the Lumberjack. And
he's going to be wearing the wing tee tomorrow, brother.
Oh, man, the wing tee. Don't do it to him.
You guys' jerseys are sick, though. Those all green with the helmets, those are sick, dude.
They are. They're not bad. It's going to be a showcase in the unis department as well. So we'll be looking forward to that, but good deal. I guess look forward to the game tomorrow. Cody, you got anything else you want to say regarding the game or regarding anything else before we sign off?
Nope. Go blue, beat state. You know the deal. Let's bring Paul home.
You heard it here first, guys. Go green, go white. Pulling for my Spartans tomorrow. Cody's pulling for his Wolverines. It's going to be a great contest. Hope you guys tune in, and we'll be live tweeting the game, or at least I will. I won't be at the game, but I'll be watching it from afar. Cody will be at the game, so we'll be too invested. He'll probably be posting stuff after the game or whatever, whenever he has time. But we'll definitely be covering this on our Monday show. So look forward to that, guys, and always stay tuned to all of our social media for everything regarding Gin Promotions, the Gin Sports Network, and the Gin College Podcast. But for now, I'm John J. II with Cody Almasi. Have a great night.